What's going on, everybody? It's Maurice here with another video. This will be another episode of a series that I'm making called Maurice's Mullings, where I talk about some of the cultural things that's happening within board games, where you're starting to see some trends happening, or you're starting to see some conversations that's starting to heat up. So today I'd like to talk about something that I didn't realize was as polarizing as it is until recently, which is apps and board games. I didn't realize that it was as polarizing as it is, where some people who are against it make it feel like it's more of a video game than it is a board game. Those who are with it kind of like something that's a little different than just hard pieces on a board or just cards. Today I like to take the side of making an argument for apps and board games. If you go back thousands of years, you look at games like the Royal Game of and if you want to go back hundreds of years, there's and Sonnet. That was another one that was played by the Egyptians, 4,000 years ago. And then now, hundreds of years ago, there was the invention of chess, and there was the invention of mahjong and parcheesi, which is, I guess, the more modern day version of that would be sorry. But now you fast forward to the 20th century, and you're starting to see this evolution of board games. You see the Hasbro games picking up steam with Sorry and Monopoly and Life. And then there's your more hardcore dedicated games that have kind of evolved from Dungeons and Dragons. You're starting to see things like Cosmic Encounters, and if you fast forward a little bit further, there's a Twilight Imperium, and now we have what we have right now in modern board gaming, which is still your traditional brick and mortar board games, where there's pieces that represent that they have a particular shape, or they have a particular color that represents something that's kind of moving around on boards. And now, within the past 10 years, we're starting to see app integrated board games. Some of my favorite board games have implemented apps into their games. So you have the likes of Mansions of Madness second edition. You have Chronicles of Crime. I love Detective. The Descent series. The list can go on and on about Rising 5. So there are more games that are coming out that are app based, but it's still a minority within the board gaming realm, because it's something that's newer, and it takes a little bit more of coordination and integration to have an app that either you play the board game through, or it's used as something on the side that may be that may be a little bit of bookkeeping, or it's more app assisted than it is the game driven by an app. And the reason why I wanted to make an argument for this is because we want to see something new within board gaming, because we don't want the space to get, what's the word I'm looking for, stale, because you're starting to see now that there's this plethora of Euro games and miniature based games that are coming out. Some of them are area control, some of them are more resource management, engine building, but you're starting to see more and more games that's coming out that feel kind of similar, and then they may have an extra mechanic or two to barely separate themselves from the other games. And I think that the amount of advancement that apps allow in board gaming is a space that we need to continue developing a culture around, because it allows the bounds of board gaming to expand. And I know some people don't like change, and that's okay. I understand it. I don't think that apps are going to get to the point where they're taking over games, because you're looking at this small movement of board games that started off as your typical board game and have moved over to video games. Gloomhaven being a perfect example, as well as Frostpunk, where you're having these games that have a phenomenal engine both on the board game as well as can be implemented digitally. But to make the case for apps being a part of this, realm of board gaming that we have, I think it kind of catered towards the newer generation, right? You're having kids that are growing up that, uh, they can operate in an iPad better than adults. They grow up and they grow up within this technology, and it's kind of an easy way to let them into the, I won't say let, but it grants an easier way for them to get into board gaming, especially with how easily accessible apps are. They can, the newer generation can pick that up a little faster. And I know that the average board gamer is probably up there in age. They're probably at least millennial, age and up. If you were to take all the more dedicated board gamers, I would imagine the average age would probably be early 30s, mid 30s. And if you think about board games that have become popular over the past, let's say, 10 years, a lot of them aren't app driven, but app driven games have shown to be successful, right? Fantasy Flight would not have put out Descent, Legends of the Dark if it wasn't, you know, something that they could make a success out of. And look at Mansions of Madness. Of course, this is another Fantasy Flight game, but the amount of expansions that they come out with, you're not going to make expansions for a dying game. These games have took something that we still do to this day and just add another layer to it to allow for enjoyment. And I know that sometimes from a technological standpoint, there are some things that you have to do to make it more appealing to everybody around the table, right? Because something like Chronicles of Crime, the good thing about that game is that you're spending a lot of the time not only getting information when you're trying to solve a case, but thinking through the theories of what's going on. You have your certain facts, and you know what you know, and you're trying to piece together what you don't have up until you're able to ask the right questions using the phone, scanning the QR codes of the different people and the different items that are there. The game doesn't always show. No, let me rephrase that. The game doesn't always mean that your face is on, stuck to the phone. There's a lot of different ways that you can get around that. Whenever my friends and I play Mansions of Madness, we actually screencast the phone screen onto a TV. So we have a TV sitting at the side. So whenever we're scanning things or we're reading things, we all can engage together instead of having one person read off their phone, right? So there are these advancements that are there for apps to thrive in. And at the end of the day, I want to see board gaming continue to grow, because if we continue to have the same kind of games that share a lot of the same mechanics or share a lot of the same design choices, then it'll grow stale. And how can we grow this amazing thing that we have without some form of advancement? There's only so much that we're able to take. And I mean, and I'm going to talk about this in another video, but we're starting to see on Kickstarter where we're having these hulking miniatures that are coming out in every single game. And it's kind of getting overbearing, where you're seeing a lot of the same things happen over and over and over again, and you want something to keep the culture and the community fresh. And I think that apps are a way for us to continue looking into how to keep board gaming moving forward, right? It don't have to, the whole game doesn't have to be ran throughout the whole app. And one example of that is the Detective series. If you ever played it, the game is card based. So you have a book that tells you what's going on with the case, and then it lets you know what number card to go read. And then from there, you get leads where you can go talk to people, spend some resources, move around the board to go and talk to different people. And in the app, you're putting in traces of, fingerprints or, a dirt sample or something like that could help you kind of confirm who touched what, or if this dirt came from this part of the country, then I know that this person went there, and it actually uses historical content for you to kind of think about what's going on within the game and relate it to something historically that happens, and that helps you with breaking down the case. I think that it's cool to continue having apps not necessarily drive the board game, but to uh, be another part of it, to where it's something different and it's something that's enjoyable. So, if you have any thoughts on whether if you like apps and board games or not, I'd love to hear what you all have to say about it, because I think that this is something that it's an opportunity that the community um, is trying to welcome, and is having kind of a rough start, but there are some successful games that have come out of it, and we want to see more. And there are going to be the stumbles. Looking at First Martians, as much as I love Portal Games and Ignacy Trzewiczek, like I love his designs. I'm a huge Robinson Crusoe fan. I'm somewhat of a fan of First Martians. I love the detective series. I got Vienna Connection right over here on my shelf. I love his games, but that was kind of an interesting attempt. But I think that we're going to have those stumbles as we continue, or at least with the game developers, or continuing to put apps into the games. And I don't think that it makes them a video game, but I think that we do have to be careful with how we integrate an app into a board game, so that we're not having our eyes taken completely away from the board game, that we still have something that's there, right? So I think Mansions of Madness and Chronicles of Crime are two shining examples of what we should be looking for in apps before we continue to advance it within the board game space. And I think the detective series is another good one. It doesn't force you to always be on your phone. You're constantly thinking about what's the next move, and who should I talk to, and do I have enough evidence right now to solve the case. And there's still things that you can do on your phone to assist you in the case, but it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't fully take you away. So yeah, I think that there are arguments back and forth on what makes an app both successful and a failure within the community. But I think we're going to have those trying times, especially with it being newer. But I think that we can also have the space to allow it to grow, but we have to be open to that. So I hope that we have the opportunity to continue seeing these things, and that we continue to be open enough to see them, and continue having the board game community grow. So this is just another random thought that came up to me recently, and I hope that board gaming continues to advance, and have apps integrated a little bit more. I like to see it. Thank goodness that Lucky Duck is kind of Lucky Duck Games are going heavy on it. Their past few games have all been app integrated. You have the Chronicles of Crime series, and there's Destinies that came out that was a success, and now they have Dark Orleans that's out right now. That's on Kickstarter, and I'm glad that they're fully invested in it, because I think that this is something that is a great opportunity in board gaming that I love to see more of. So yeah, hit the like button, comment down on your thoughts on apps and and board games, and I love to see what you all have to say about it. Thank you for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful day.